Miracles are those unexplainable things nobody can understand, but that's something that happens all the time all over the world. For those who don't believe there's something beyond the terrestrial, it's a challenge to accept things science isn't able to understand or explain. If at this point of the video we've got you thinking, brace yourself because we have more events that left many people with their mouths wide open. Join us in this countdown of 5 mysterious miracles that science cannot explain. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. The woman who saved her daughter from the afterlife. They say parents are capable of doing anything for their children. There are even registered cases of people who've been able to develop superpowers and strength to save their kids when they're in danger. But that's one thing, and it's a whole nother story to return from the death to help someone. This is what happened with a woman named Jennifer Grossbeck. Unfortunately, Jennifer and her daughter had a traffic accident. The car in which they were traveling tipped over and fell into a river. They were trapped there for several hours. Jennifer's daughter at that time was just a baby of 19 months. Keep that in mind. The accident took place in an area that was quite desolate, so no one realized what had happened. Also, the car was under the ice water. But luckily, a few hours later, a fisherman in the area saw the accident and decided to call the police. When the authorities arrived, they heard Jennifer's voice asking for help. They said the woman was asking for help desperately, and the only thing that she was yelling was that she needed to help her daughter. The men who were trying to rescue them told her to calm down, that soon they would get them out of there and everyone would be fine. When they finally managed to see the driver, they realized she was dead. The voice they had heard so clearly couldn't have been hers because she had been dead for several hours. Nor could it have been from the baby. The only explanation is that Jennifer refused to cross over to the next level while her daughter was still in danger. No one could explain where the mysterious voice they all heard came from. The strangest thing is that it just wasn't one person who heard the voice, but the 4 rescuers. They all sat down to review what had happened and agreed they did hear the voice of an adult person desperately asking for help. Luckily, thanks to that mysterious voice, little Lily was rescued and was put under her father and her grandparents' care. And even though they miss Jennifer a lot, they're happy because in Lily they find a part of her mother that will always live, and somehow thanks to her, that little girl was safe. Number 4. The woman who came back to life. There are cases of people who spend a few seconds dead and thanks to CPR are brought back to life. But this woman's case is exceptional. In addition to spending much more time without a pulse than most people, she came back to life when doctors were about to establish the time of her death. It's assumed that giving birth is a moment full of joy for everyone. Bringing to the world a new life is something that fills the whole family with emotion. But for Ruby, it meant being close to death. In 2014, this woman was hospitalized in order to deliver her daughter. However, things in the delivery room got a little out of hand and the situation became quite dangerous. Everything was fine initially, but from one moment to another, this woman began to go into shock. The doctors noticed her body beginning to get stiff and she was losing color. Luckily, she had given birth already and her baby was safe, but unfortunately she was dying. For a long 45 minutes, the doctor tried to resuscitate Ruby, but they couldn't. They did everything in their power until after so long, they decided to give up. After all, when a person spends more than 5 minutes without a pulse, they're legally dead. But things then took an unexpected turn. When the doctor was about to announce the time of her death, her heart began to beat without anyone's help. This was something that left the doctors with their mouth wide open. They couldn't understand how it was possible for this to happen. But yes, it was real, and it was right in front of their eyes. A woman who came back to life without any help, seconds before being declared dead. The most shocking thing is that even though her brain didn't receive oxygen for a long time, she didn't have any kind of brain damage. She was perfect, alive, and ready to go home with her newborn baby. The woman stated that while she was dead, she saw a series of spiritual figures that were, according to her, responsible for guiding her towards the right path. No one understood what happened here. Scientifically, it can't be explained, and that is why she, her family, and those who know the story are sure this is a real miracle. Number 3. The man who lives without eating. Can you imagine spending 75 years without eating? Probably you can't even imagine spending a few hours without eating something delicious, much less drinking a little bit of water at least. But this yogi has practically spent all of his life without eating and without taking any kind of liquid. It's something that we think doesn't have any scientific explanation. According to this incredible man, at the age of 7, he left his home in search of spiritual development, and at the age of 11, he was blessed by the goddess Amba, who allegedly gave him a nectar that leaked through a hole on his palate, taking away the need for him to go to the bathroom. Or, that is to say, he has no need of eating nor any of the same needs that result from eating. This is extremely rare, and many people didn't take his word. Most people think he eats secretly because a person, they believe, can't live long without eating, much less without drinking water. You probably don't believe this either, right? Well, you're not the only one. There are many people who couldn't believe this was real. But this man was not afraid to prove he wasn't faking it. So in 2003, he participated in a scientific experiment where he would prove his connection with the goddess was totally real. The experiment was very simple. He only had to prove in front of the cameras he could go 15 days without food or water. The investigation was carried out by Dr. Sudhir Shah, who was, at that time, part of the Ministry of Defense of India, and president of the Paris Scientific and Religious Association of Doctors, and part of the same religion as this yogi. The results showed indeed this man was able to survive all that time without food or water. In spite of this, the studies haven't been accepted by all, and there are those who believe it's all a fraud. But this man doesn't benefit at all from his austerity and determination of not eating. Nothing to date has proven how this man can survive, so everyone who knows this case claims it to be a true miracle. Number 2. Naga fireballs. Despite being in the 21st century, there are many mysteries of nature that haven't yet been solved. Even the most experienced scientists haven't managed to find an explanation for what we're going to show you next. That's why many consider this event to be a true miracle of nature. In a dark area of the Mekong River, near the border between Thailand and Laos, the so-called Naga fireball phenomena occurs every October. The luminous orbs seem to rise from the river and rise like ghosts above the water. Normally, they go up about 30 meters, but there have been cases of fireballs that have reached heights of more than 100 meters. And horizontally, they go between 50 and 150 meters away. This is just simply amazing, don't you think? They're generally small spheres about the size of an egg, although there are some with the size of a basketball. And when the phenomenon takes place, we can see a few tens to thousands of them at the same time. Their color are reddish pink, and they don't give off any kind of smell or smoke. The brightness of each of these fireballs increases as it rises, and they can last between 5 to 10 seconds. Afterwards, poof, they go out and gone. They're known as Naga fireballs because the phenomenon is usually seen when the Buddhist Lent ends, and the natives thought Naga, the mythological serpent, spat these from the bottom of the river to greet Buddha at the end of this religious period. Their development is so extraordinary that currently Thai tourist agencies sell them as a show to attract tourists. However, scientists who study these mysterious balls have found that the number of balls is gradually reducing year by year. Without a doubt, it's a great mystery no one has been able to fully solve, and that's why both inhabitants and tourists alike believe it to be an impressive miracle. Number 1. Teresa Newman and her stigmata. Teresa Newman was a woman surrounded by mysteries. Her story became famous because she experienced some very rare episodes that are known in the religious world as stigmata. Stigmata are a whole issue when it comes to the church. Jesus suffered several injuries on his way to the cross, and there are certain people who have suffered those same injuries. In other words, people feel the pains of the wounds suffered by Christ and even bleed like him. One of the most famous and known cases is St. Francis of Assisi. But this woman, Teresa Newman, is not far behind. In fact, Teresa Newman was a peasant who was born in 1898. She came from a very poor and quite religious family. From 1928, she began to experience visions where she saw the suffering of Christ, and then she began to feel everything Christ suffered during his passion. Many people witnessed these episodes and were simply amazed to see how this woman bled non-stop from wounds that were identical to those of Christ. Many people consider her to be a saint because she experienced these same things. The most impressive thing about Teresa's case is that after suffering the episodes where lots of blood was shed, the wounds were closed by themselves and the blood just dried up. It was as if nothing had ever happened. And if it wasn't because there were people who witnessed this, no one would have ever believed her. Because the morning after, there was no trace of anything this woman had suffered. Even some American soldiers who were quite skeptical and were in the war witnessed one of Teresa's episodes. They thought it was a trick. That's why one of them decided to take a sample of the blood that came out of the woman's wounds to verify that it was really human blood. When he saw the results, he couldn't believe it. It was really, indeed, human blood. It wasn't a fraud at all. In addition to the blood test, the most impressive thing for these soldiers was to witness the entire episode throughout the night and seeing that when Teresa woke up, she was exhausted, but all of her wounds had closed up and healed. In addition to Teresa, there are approximately 300 cases of people around the world who've suffered stigmata, and yet science still can't give a strong explanation for their causes. Conclusion: unexplained miracles. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top Fivers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, Americano, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There'll be a link in the description, so check it out as well as our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now. See you next.